Remember when winter didn't just arrive, it attacked? When snowbanks were taller than your dad? When -40 was just another Tuesday and your car wouldn't start for 3 months straight? Want to go back to when winter actually meant something? The 1970s delivered some of the most brutal, unforgiving, absolutely legendary winters that Canada has ever seen. We're not talking about the mild winters of today where a few centimeters shuts down the city. We're talking about real winter, the kind that tested you, shaped you, and made you earn your Canadian citizenship every single day from November to April. This was the decade of the blizzard of '71 that buried Montreal under 4 feet of snow. The winter of '77 that broke records across the country. The endless cold snaps that made -30 feel like a warm day. These weren't just weather events. They were battles that every Canadian fought and somehow survived. But here's the thing, as brutal as those winters were, they created memories that define what it means to be Canadian. The way communities came together, the way you learned to dress in layers that made you look like the Michelin Man, the way your car became a test of will and mechanical knowledge, the way kids still went outside and played because staying inside wasn't an option. The '70s winters were the last of the old-school Canadian winters before climate change started making things milder, before remote starters and heated seats were standard, before weather apps told you exactly what was coming. You just woke up, looked outside, and dealt with whatever winter threw at you. In this video, we're going to relive the worst decade of Canadian winters, the 1970s. From the epic snowstorms to the bone-chilling cold to the daily struggles that made you tougher than you ever thought possible. Some of this will make you laugh, some of it will make you grateful for modern technology, and all of it will remind you that you survived something that today's generation couldn't even imagine. Before we dive into the deep freeze, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got a lot of snow to shovel through, and trust me, every memory is worth revisiting. Let's go back to when winter was winter. Point 1. The legendary snowstorms. Let's start with the snow, because the '70s delivered storms that are still talked about today. The blizzard of '71 hit Montreal in March, and dumped over 4 feet of snow in 24 hours. The city shut down completely. Cars were buried, buses couldn't run, people were trapped in their homes. The army had to be called in to help dig out the city. But it wasn't just Montreal. Every region had its legendary storm. The prairies got hammered repeatedly. Ontario saw lake-effect snow that buried entire towns. The Maritimes dealt with nor'easters that combined snow, wind, and ice into something biblical. The winter of '76 to '77 was particularly brutal. Record snowfall across the country. Buffalo got buried under 12 feet of snow, and southern Ontario wasn't far behind. The snow just kept coming week after week until you forgot what grass looked like. And the snowbanks. God, the snowbanks. They'd be 6, 7, 8 feet tall by February. You'd shovel your driveway and throw the snow up onto banks that were already taller than you. Kids would tunnel through them, build forts in them, jump off roofs into them. Snowplows would come through and create walls of snow at the end of your driveway that were packed so hard you needed a pickaxe to break through. You'd spend an hour shoveling your driveway, and the plow would come by and undo all your work in seconds. Every Canadian knew that rage. School closures were rare. It had to be truly catastrophic for schools to close. A foot of snow overnight? Go to school, -35 with wind chill? Go to school, blizzard conditions? Maybe they'd close, but probably not. You just bundled up and went. Point 2. The bone-chilling cold. But it wasn't just the snow. The cold in the '70s was something else entirely. -30, -35, -40 with wind chill. These weren't rare occurrences. They were regular winter temperatures. And you didn't have the luxury of staying inside. You had to go to work, go to school, live your life. The prairies were the worst. Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon. These cities would see weeks of -40 temperatures. Your breath would freeze instantly. Your eyelashes would frost over. Exposed skin would freeze in minutes. But even in Ontario and Quebec, the cold was relentless. The Great Lakes would freeze solid. You could walk across Lake Ontario if you were brave or stupid enough. The St. Lawrence would freeze, creating ice roads that people actually used. Your car became your enemy. You'd go out in the morning, turn the key, and nothing. Dead. Frozen. The battery couldn't handle it. The oil was too thick. The gas line was frozen. You'd have to plug in the block heater if you had one, or just accept that your car wasn't starting until spring. Jump-starting cars was a daily ritual. You'd see neighbors helping neighbors, strangers helping strangers. Jumper cables were as essential as your winter coat. Everyone knew how to boost a car because everyone needed it at some point. And if your car did start, you'd have to scrape the ice off the windows. Not just a light frost-thick, solid ice that required a proper ice scraper and 10 minutes of work. Your hands would be frozen by the time you were done. Warming up the car meant letting it idle for 15 minutes before you could drive it. The heater would blow cold air for the first 10 minutes. You'd sit there, shivering, waiting for the engine to warm up enough to actually produce heat. Point 3. The winter wardrobe. Dressing for 70s, winter was an art form that made you look ridiculous but kept you alive. Layers, so many layers. Long underwear, the itchy, uncomfortable kind that your mom insisted you wear. Then pants, then another pair of pants if it was really cold, then a shirt, a sweater, maybe 2 sweaters, then your winter coat. The winter coats of the 70s were massive, puffy things that made you look like a walking sleeping bag. They weren't stylish, they weren't fitted. But they were warm, and that's all that mattered. Toques, not beanies, toques were essential. Wool ones that your grandmother knitted with patterns that were uniquely Canadian. They'd get wet from snow and sweat, but you wore them anyway, because frostbite on your ears was worse than a wet head. Scarves wrapped around your face until only your eyes showed. You'd breathe through the scarf and it would get damp and freeze, creating a crusty ice mask. But it beat having your face freeze. Mittens, not gloves. Gloves didn't cut it in -40. You needed proper mittens, the kind with the string that went through your coat sleeves so you wouldn't lose them. Leather palms, wool backs, and if you were lucky, a liner inside. Snow pants were mandatory for kids. Those swishy, waterproof pants that made noise when you walked. They'd get soaked through by the end of recess, but you'd wear them again the next day because they were the only ones you had. Boots, proper winter boots with felt liners. Sorels were the gold standard. Heavy, clunky, impossible to run in, but they kept your feet warm in the worst conditions. You'd take them off at school and the felt liners would be soaked with sweat. Getting dressed to go outside took 20 minutes. Getting undressed took another 10. And if you had to pee, too bad. You held it because getting undressed and dressed again wasn't worth it. Point 4. Heating the house. Keeping your house warm in the 70s was a constant battle and a significant expense. Oil furnaces were common and oil was expensive. The oil crisis of '73 made it worse. Your parents would keep the thermostat at 18 or 19 degrees to save money. You'd wear sweaters inside. You'd huddle near the heat registers. Some houses still had coal furnaces. Your dad would have to go down to the basement and shovel coal into the furnace. The whole house would smell like coal smoke. The basement would be covered in coal dust. Wood stoves were making a comeback as people looked for cheaper heating options. You'd spend fall weekends cutting and splitting wood. The wood stove would heat one room really well and the rest of the house not at all. Electric baseboard heaters were the worst, expensive to run and barely effective. You'd crank them up and still be cold. The electricity bill would be astronomical. Windows were single pane and drafty. You'd tape plastic over them to create a second layer of insulation. The plastic would fog up and freeze, creating beautiful ice crystals that you couldn't see through. Doors had draft stoppers, those long fabric tubes filled with sand or rice that you'd put at the bottom of doors to stop cold air from coming in. Every door had one. The cold room in the basement was actually cold. You'd store your potatoes, carrots, and preserves down there because it was basically a refrigerator. Going down to get something meant bracing yourself for the cold. Pipes would freeze if you weren't careful. You'd leave taps dripping overnight to keep water moving. If they did freeze, You'd have to thaw them with a hairdryer or space heater, hoping they hadn't burst. Point 5. Winter activities and survival. But despite the brutal conditions, life went on. You adapted, you survived. You even found ways to enjoy it. Outdoor rinks were everywhere. Every neighborhood had one. Your dad and the other dads would flood it, maintain it, shovel it after every snowfall. You'd play hockey for hours, even in -30, because that's what you did. Skating on frozen ponds and lakes was common. You'd test the ice by throwing rocks, then venture out. Probably not the safest thing, but everyone did it. The ice would crack and boom beneath you, but you kept skating, tobogganing down massive hills. The snow would be packed hard and icy, and you'd fly down at terrifying speeds. Crashes were common, injuries happened, but you'd climb back up and do it again. Snowball fights were epic, not the gentle tosses of today, but full-on warfare. You'd pack the snowballs hard, sometimes with a bit of ice in the middle. Getting hit hurt. That was the point, building snow forts and igloos. The snow was perfect for it, heavy, packable, and there was so much of it. You'd spend days building elaborate structures, then defend them in snowball battles. Shoveling was a daily chore. You'd shovel the driveway, the walkway, the path to the street. Then it would snow again overnight, and you'd do it all over again. Your back would ache, your arms would be sore. But you did it because it had to be done. Helping neighbors was common. If an elderly person lived on your street, you'd shovel their driveway without being asked. If someone's car was stuck, you'd help push. Winter created community because survival required it. Point 6. School and work in the winter. The 70s winters didn't stop life, they just made everything harder. Walking to school in -35 was character building, as your parents would say. You'd bundle up, head out into the cold, and walk. Sometimes a kilometer, sometimes more. Your face would freeze, your fingers would go numb, but you made it. Waiting for the school bus in the cold was torture. You'd stand at the end of your driveway, stamping your feet, trying to stay warm. The bus would be late because of the conditions. You'd be frozen by the time it arrived. School itself was often cold. The heating systems couldn't keep up. You'd sit in class wearing your sweater, sometimes even your coat. Teachers would let you keep your mittens on if your hands were too cold to write. Recess was mandatory. You went outside no matter how cold it was. -30 degrees? Go outside. Blizzard? Go outside. The teachers needed a break, and you needed to burn off energy. You'd play for 15 minutes, come back inside red-faced and sweating despite the cold. Your dad still went to work. No work-from-home options, no snow days for adults. The factory, the office, the construction site, they all expected you there. You'd dig your car out, get it started somehow, and drive through terrible conditions because that's what you did. Commutes that normally took 30 minutes would take 2 hours. Roads were barely plowed. Visibility was terrible. Cars would slide off into ditches, but you kept going because missing work wasn't an option. Point 7. The resilience it built. The final reason the 70s winters were the worst and somehow the best is what they taught you. Those winters built resilience. You learned that you could handle more than you thought, that discomfort was temporary, that you could survive conditions that would break softer people. You learned practical skills, how to dress for extreme cold, how to start a car in -40, how to shovel efficiently, how to walk on ice without falling, how to recognize frostbite. These weren't taught in school, they were learned through experience. You learned community. Winter was too harsh to face alone. You helped your neighbors, they helped you. You looked out for each other because survival sometimes depended on it. You learned to appreciate warmth, coming inside after hours in the cold, feeling the heat hit your face, slowly thawing out. That was a pleasure that people in mild climates will never understand. You learned that nature was powerful and you were small. Winter didn't care about your plans, your schedule, your comfort. It did what it wanted, and you adapted. That humility, that respect for forces beyond your control, shaped how you saw the world. And you learned that you were tougher than you looked. Every Canadian who survived the 70s winters carries that knowledge. You faced down some of the worst weather on the planet and came out the other side. That's not nothing. The feeling. Close your eyes one more time. It's February 1977. It's minus 38 with wind chill. Your car won't start. You're dressed in so many layers you can barely move. And you're about to walk to work because that's what you do. The 70s winters were brutal, unforgiving, and absolutely legendary. They were the worst winters Canada has seen in modern times. But they were also the winters that defined what it means to be Canadian. We survived them. We adapted to them. We even found ways to enjoy them. And they made us tougher, more resilient, more capable than we ever thought possible. Today's winters are milder. Cars start reliably. Houses are better insulated. Weather apps warn us what's coming. Life is easier, and that's probably good. But something was lost too. The challenge, the community, the sense of accomplishment that came from surviving another Canadian winter. The knowledge that you could handle whatever nature threw at you. What's your worst memory of 70s winters? The storm that buried your car? The cold snap that lasted for weeks? The walk to school that nearly killed you? Share it in the comments. Let's celebrate our survival. If this video took you back to the deep freeze, hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who remembers when winter was something to be survived, not just endured. Thanks for watching. And remember, the past isn't just nostalgia. It's proof that we're tougher than we look. Stay warm.